Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app, on Apple Podcasts, on Android, Spotify, or the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to Discord, our Off the Floor server. I think I did that backwards. $2.99 per month. Chat with Heat fans and with us all day and all night long. Again, it's Off the Floor, $2.99 per month. Link right here in the description. Also, you're going to want to hear about the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. But first, let's go to the theme song.
Down the bitch gang. Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust.
You sound scared.
It's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to 5 on the Floor. I promised I'd wear this ridiculous thing on my head if the Heat won. They won 95-94 in Minnesota. No Jimmy Butler tonight. They held Anthony Edwards. We'll talk about some of what went into this. We get to our defensive part of the show here. Held him to 8 of 24 shooting, including 4 of 14 from 3 as he scored 22 points. Julius Randle, 6 of 16 shooting. So the two top scorers on Minnesota combined to go 14 of 40. The Heat hold the Wolves to 94 points. They survive another losing third quarter. They survive falling behind in the fourth. They survive the absence of Jimmy Butler. And they survive another subpar offensive game from Bam Adebayo, who went 3 of 11 from the floor, is shooting about 30% in his last 3. And yet they win. They win because of a really, really, really well-designed play by Eric Spoelstra. One he's designed before, by the way, that the fans didn't like so much. Duncan Robinson, we'll talk about the exact play, but we'll just tip it off here a little bit. Duncan Robinson fighting Nikola Jovic, who did not start tonight, but actually played 23 minutes, which is more than he's been playing as a starter. Made the layup, made the ensuing free throw. They then got out on Anthony Edwards, forced to miss. Was it Edwards or Conley? I can't remember at this point. You guys
Conley took the last shot.
It was Conley on the last shot. Forced to miss by Conley at the end there, and they did grab the rebound. Bam Adebayo grabbed the rebound. This was after they failed to grab a rebound earlier, which has been a problem late in games. And also they overcame 3 missed free throws late in the game. So, Greg, a lot of stuff that they overcame tonight. This is one of those Spoelstra throw everything at the wall type games. And some things like in the micro we didn't love, like 20 minutes. By the way, you should join us on Playback. We had a good time on there tonight. I think we had 7 different hosts that were there tonight. 20 minutes from Josh Richardson tonight. Didn't score a point, but I have a feeling, or he scored 2 points, but no feels. I have a feeling Spoelstra is going to focus some on defense with him and why he played him so much. But again, the minute distribution was kind of weird. Bam didn't give them a lot on offense. Again, Rozier didn't have the breakout that Brady and I talked about on the podcast before, 4 of 8, 11 points. And yet they win. So what do you make of this?
Boy, they needed this victory. They needed a win so bad. And the fact that they got one on the road along this trip that was grueling, and now you lose Jimmy. I thought that, it was interesting to get K-Love back, and he immediately started. Haywood Highsmith is kind of who I expected to dive in there. But Jaime, I think, is an option as well. But going with Kevin Love, to me, you mentioned Spo having to throw the kitchen sink at this game. They wanted to get this victory, and so I think a lot of that had to do with matchups, and I don't know that that'll be the way that they go going forward. We'll see. But it's just a huge victory, and they needed it. And, sometimes we can overanalyze and talk about how they got there and all that, but this is a team that was reeling, and they needed a victory on a long road trip, still got 3 left to go. Ultimately, you got to take it. And even though there were bumps along the road, they win another close game. They play in so many close games. They need a couple more games like this to build confidence and to actually string together victories and make a run here.
Well, I said they had to try to get one of these first three of this trip. So they got one. So I guess to a certain extent, mission accomplished. We'll get to the player of the game here in a second. Brady, we didn't hear from you tonight because Alex, being Greg, we're all on playback. I'm just curious what you thought in general of the way that Spo managed the game.
I mean, it was interesting the fact that he went to play so many guys. I mean, he went 11 deep, which is uncharacteristic, but I think it's necessary when you're in a position that they are, when you're in the middle of a road trip, when you're without Jimmy, and when you're just trying to find a winning formula and just trying to find something to spark this team. So I thought it made sense. Like, he had Khalil Ware come in, spark things immediately, kind of get a lob off right out the gate, a nice chase down block. Pella comes in, gets a steal and a run out. He was just finding certain ones that worked and certain ones that didn't. So I thought he was just kind of feeling out the game, like taking chances as well, like running zone in crucial inbound plays, defensive inbound plays late in the game. Like that just shows that he was willing to be a little unique tonight, even aside from that final play that we'll get to. Like just the fact that he's able to kind of you kind of have to do that in games like this. You just do. And especially we haven't had many of these games where we're talking about it being in the mud, like 100% in the mud. Like we've had third quarters in the mud or second halves in the mud. This game was just absolutely disgusting, and it probably fits their style to a T. That like if they could battle their way out of this one, because it was ugly. Like it was the turnovers. It was the fact that they went legitimately 6 minutes of basketball time without a point. Like that alone, aside from the fact they had how many transition opportunities that they just didn't capitalize on. Like they kept forcing the turnovers, couldn't capitalize in transition. It's like they left so many points on the table. And it was like, I don't know how you recover from that, especially when the Timberwolves made their counterpunch. It's like with all those points on the table that you just left, I can't see them out battling this team late. And to answer your question about Spo, they got after it defensively. Like that's completely what it was. They didn't have the greatest individual defenders out there, but I thought they were like just super active. They were in the right spots. They were in the zone. They were even at times when they didn't finish possessions with the rebounding, which is a whole nother topic. Like I just thought the initial efforts, the contests and all that stuff was really good in this game. And ultimately you have to win games like this. And it just felt like over the last, beginning of this season and late last season, they weren't winning many of these games, many of these in the mud, tough games that were ugly. And that's kind of Miami Heat's winning formula. So this, I don't care how you get it. You needed a win like this. But I definitely think there was some good trends, and it starts with the guy that you're probably going to talk about, the player of the game, which is Tyler. But I think the fun one is Nikola Jovic, because that final play, that he deserved that. Like he deserved that moment. He deserved to close a game because he hasn't closed many games. And just the fact that he scored 15 points off the bench, 6 of 11 shooting. Like we need to have a real conversation about him specifically, because the way how loose he played, how confident he looked, it almost feels like he's better off the bench. Like when he can have the ball in his hands, actually, when he can play free, when he can kind of do his thing, where he's not kind of bottled up in that starting lineup.
You know how many guys were saying that about, that they'd be better off the bench? But he's another one. It did feel like Spo started Kevin Love to kind of say, this is how you should play the position in this starting lineup. And then just kind of Nico just played free after that. But we are going to go with somebody else as the player of the game. I agree that Jovic was the surprise player of the game. We'll get to that with the play of the day. We'll get to a little bit later. But, Alex, let's tee up the player of the game.
And now it's time for the A-Aggressive Insurance Player of the Night, sponsored by our friend Lynette. You can find her at insurancebylynette.com. That's with 2 N's and 2 T's, insurancebylynette.com. If you need car insurance, renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance, or any other type of insurance, she's the person to go to. Based in Lauderhill, she services the entire Tri-County area here in South Florida, and she will make sure to get you the best deal. She'll probably talk to you about the heat while you're at it. Reach out to her, insurancebylynette.com. And now, the player of the game.
8 turnovers. 8 turnovers, and he's still the player of the game. Tyler Hero saw something different tonight. We saw this a little bit in the postseason last year, Alex, against Boston. He brilliantly handled it in one game, but he struggled in the other 4. They blitzed him. They doubled him. They shaded him. They didn't have any fear of anybody else on the Heat offense tonight. It was obvious. Like, without Jimmy in there, there's no fear of Bam right now, and not really a whole lot of fear of Terry. So they just came at Tyler, and yes, 8 turnovers. So you want to clean that up. But he was 9 of 15 from the field. That included 4 of 8 from 3. He had 2 threes in the fourth quarter that without those, they don't get themselves back into this game. And he was basically a decoy on that last play. But, I mean, again, he's like our guy Sean Roger was saying, they don't get to 90 tonight. No, they don't if Tyler doesn't get them there. So I just think we're seeing the growth. What would you like to have seen him clean up from tonight?
Well, firstly, before I answer that question, it seems you've inherited some of the my helicopter stuff. So just throwing that out there. I thought it was me, but I'm seeing the same stuff in the chat here, our private chat. But no, to get back to your question, I was still able to understand it. I think Tyler is one of those where like you see, like you mentioned it there, the Boston series, right? When he's asked to do a little bit too much, I think that's where you see more of the turnovers, right? Especially against an elite team on defense like Minnesota, right? Like you saw it against Boston, and you saw it a little bit against Minnesota tonight, where he still had a good game, right? I'm not taking that away from him, but I think the mistakes pile up a little bit more when he's forced to be in that role like he was tonight and like he was against Boston. I think you're 100% right about that. And he still came out on the other side looking pretty successful. Like they've got so many great defenders on that team, and they were really doing it. Like Brady mentioned, I 100% agree. They won a game in the mud, right? Like just one game after, we were talking about, and I was yelling about how they don't have an identity anymore and they can't lean into their defense. That's exactly the type of game they won tonight. Watching it, you can see that the numbers reflected too. Like both teams had a really bad offensive rating overall and in the half court, and he came out on the other side, even with like the fact that they got outscored in the second half. There wasn't a crazy quarter that they got destroyed by a huge margin, but they did get outscored in the second half. They got outscored in the fourth quarter. A game on the road without your best player, can't take that away. And Tyler was, just a huge part of it. It's a really impressive win, and I'm kind of surprised that they were able to, lean into that, right? The fact, I think their defense was better than expected today. We always see with Jimmy, like when he's out, that the offense kind of, gets a little bit more free flowing, but their offense was not really what won them the game tonight. Like they had a pretty terrible offensive rating. They were missing free throws, and not only that, he had 22 turnovers, right? That's usually not a formula for them to win. Again, in Minnesota without Jimmy, but they did it. Like they came out on the other side, and they dodged so many bullets towards the end there. And Tyler, man, he did enough. He's just been awesome this season, man.
It's just such a weird game. I mean, I'm looking at the numbers. Like they held Minnesota to 29% 3-point shooting, 40% overall. Conley was 2 of 9. Again, I mentioned Randall and Edwards combined to be 14 of 40. Naz Reid usually kills them. He hurt them tonight. He did have 15, was a plus 10, 5 of 11. He's hurt them worse before. DiVincenzo shot 3 of 9. Alexander Walker played well against them. But again, they played just 8. I mean, they've sort of played their normal core, and they have a pretty deep bench. They could have gone deeper, honestly. And Miami played, like you said, 11. And there were some interesting decisions that were made in that 11. We'll talk about the Josh thing with the 20 minutes there. Ware played 9 minutes and made a 3, right? Or it was a foot on the line 2. It was a Caleb Martin special, but he did make a long jumper. But let's get to we'll go to Brady on this, and I'll go to Greg back after it. Let's go to the play of the night here. Let's kind of break down what happened there.
And now it's time for the X-Ray of the Play of the Day, brought to us by our friends over at Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. Nelson and his team will bring the X-ray equipment and the staffing to you. If you work in a hospital or a medical office, get a consultation today at c-armandstaffing.com or give them a call at 561-891-9620. Their fleet of trucks at your service. Again, it's Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services, 561-891-9620. And now, the X-Ray of the Play of the Day.
Now, if I recall correctly, Brady, this came after Spo challenged, right? Because there was a challenge of a foul after the putback. Mm-hmm. So Miami was down 2, but it gave Eric a little extra time, I think. Yeah. And then he sent Duncan out. He sent out an interesting group. No Bam. right? No Bam. We haven't seen that, right? He put out basically all offensive players, I guess. Love was out there. Duncan was out there. Hero was out there. Who am I missing? Terry was out there. And Jovic, right?
and Love. Yeah.
Right. So not the kind of lineup you would see during the game. Okay, not a regular group necessarily. He had Duncan inbound. He's been a good inbounder before. Just take us through it.
So you mentioned it. Duncan is the inbounder, which part of me kind of felt like he was the most dangerous player on that play. It kind of felt like if things. So I'll say this: the secondary option, like if that slip from Jovic isn't there, Tyler Hero is getting that ball off the screen from Love and kind of in that short corner, and Tyler can either create off to going to his right to get a shot off or go to the rim, or he could grenade it to Duncan into like a handoff and he can get a shot off. So that's just there. That's an option. But what ends up happening is, and this is kind of the interesting thing to me, is if you look at the way they set it up, first of all, McDaniels is guarding Tyler in the backcourt. So you're kind of taking one of their best defenders out the play. Love is acting like he's going to back screen for Jovic. That's what the setup is. And they have Edwards guarding Jovic and Love is being guarded by Randall. So you're basically saying that Randall and Edwards are probably pre-communicated what the situation is going to be. Like right as Duncan's getting that ball in the inbound, they're predicting this switch. Terry's lined up at midcourt, kind of loops back around into a back screen. So that was not the expectation that Terry was going to be the screener. And obviously then you kind of see a miscommunication. Jovic can slip back door. They switch it. And if you look at the play, it really is wild to me why he like hesitated on the switch and why he wouldn't just cut off Jovic. But that slight hesitation after he switched led to Jovic finding some space. Great pass by Duncan, put it right on the money, and Jovic lays it in plus the foul. Then obviously he makes the free throw, which is not a guarantee with this team. I was pretty shocked actually that he knocked that free throw down. But just an incredible play call, just an incredible setup. The fact that you mentioned it, not putting Bam in on that play, but I just think there's just a uniqueness to the play when you put out a different group of guys. It almost kind of confuses a deep. Like when you keep putting out these same groupings, I think you get a little stale. But the thing that stuck out to me was just the creativity of kind of disguising a back screen and then bringing somebody else in. It just kind of stuck out.
Oh, you mentioned Jovic making the free throw there. Let's give Terry some credit because he made his too late in the game. And let's go back to this. And I know you're going to want to get to a defending the house point, Greg, but and Bam grabbed the last rebound. He did. He got the last defensive rebound. But you have a game here again. We've talked about this, but there's really one game we've come out of this feeling totally satisfied with what Bam has done. He missed 2 free throws late, and it worked. So but taking Bam off the floor,
he's in a horrific slump. I think we just can acknowledge that, and we need to just make it through it and try to get him on the other side of it because he's in a horrific shooting slump. And it has impacted other parts of his game. Tonight, we didn't see that as much, but there still wasn't flawless play and execution. But, there's high standards for Bam Adebayo, particularly when Jimmy's out. So he's going to have to get better. He was better tonight, but he's in an offensive slump like maybe we haven't seen from him. We've seen him go through periods where maybe he didn't shoot it. But this is a period where he's shooting it and he's just not making it.
Yeah, no, he's not. He doesn't look like he has any rhythm and knows where his offense is going to come from right now. And he did have a couple times where he took the ball off the dribble and had dunks, and it's like, okay, just do that more often. I know it's easy for us to say, but I think this whole thing about the threes, I would be happy for him to get back into the foul line jumpers that he had last year. We've talked about this on various shows. All right, before we get to our defending the house segment, we're going to do this rapid fire for real because we got some internal business. We got to take care of this. All right, so I'm literally cutting you guys off at 24 seconds. Okay, let's do it. All right, we're going to start. Let's start with Alex on this one. Your thoughts on Josh Richardson playing 20 minutes tonight, Pelle Larsson playing 3, Alec Burks playing 0.
I'm not a fan of that. I've already made it clear that I think Burks and Larson have been better than him. I get, Spo trying to give him some time. I don't know if this is the time to do it, with him coming off so early after the shoulder surgery. And like I said, with other guys just playing better. I will say he's been decent in the zone and in the press when he's next to Haywood out there. Like, it's okay. I just don't think the defense is good enough to play him over the other guys that are there. So, no hate towards Josh. I just don't think he's the guy right now.
Brady, Khalil Ware getting 9 minutes off the bench tonight. Do you think he earned additional confidence from Spo?
100%. I saw he looked more confident in this game in general. He was way more active. Like I said, the first play being a handoff and a lob, and if you look at that lob, he's literally catching the ball above the square, above the box on the backboard. You have to utilize that. Getting knocked on the floor, getting up and getting a chase down block, impacting shots around the rim, all that stuff leads to getting more minutes. And I'll say this, Ethan, when we did the podcast earlier, I said something that, Naz Reid is pretty physical, and him being kind of the backup big could lead to Miami saying, okay, we'll go with Thomas Bryant just because we know he's a little more physical and we trust him more. They didn't do that. They trusted him in this game, and I think that says a lot about what they can do moving forward.
All right, Greg. Kevin Love got the start tonight, played 13 minutes against one of his former teams. I'm not expecting to see Jimmy against Detroit. I kind of feel like this win allows them to rest him a little more. Maybe Jaquez works himself in a better shape. I thought Jaime just didn't look totally himself yet. Maybe just not the conditioning after he was sick for a few days. Do you think now when we see Jovic so comfortable off the bench that maybe Spo does roll out this same starting lineup against Detroit, or maybe it's possibly Jaquez instead of Highsmith, who played, by the way, 33 minutes tonight, which was third most on the team?
I don't think it'll be Jaquez for Highsmith. I think Kevin Love will retreat back to the bench. Particularly, I think this was matchup driven, and maybe I'll be completely wrong, and I'll own that. But then when you think about where do they go next? Detroit. They have Isaiah Stewart, Tobias Harris, and then they really run three guards with Tim Hardaway Jr., Jaden Ivey, and Cade. So I don't know. I don't see them running Kevin Love and Bam out there against that group, but maybe I'll be wrong. But I think this was about Randall and Gobert being in the lineup and how they were going to handle that.
All right, we're going to close it early tonight. Let's get to defending the house.
And now it's time for our Defending the House segment, sponsored by our friends over at The Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. That's with 2 P's and an E, realestateshopfl.com, or at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. This is Javier Iglesias and Amanda Martin. They help buyers and sellers in real estate. They're nimble and protective of their clients. They service the entire Tri-County area. That's Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties with a proven on-market strategy. The Real Estate Shop sellers earn the most money in the shortest time frame because Amanda and Javier have a deep understanding of the local market. So check them out. Again, it's at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram, realestateshopfl.com, or give them a call at 954-268-9812. And now, who defended the house? All right, Greg, I'll let you close this out.
So not only did Miami hold Minnesota to 29% three-point shooting and under 40% field goal shooting overall, they forced 19 turnovers. Of those 19 turnovers, 14 of them were steals, and that's without Jimmy Butler out there. And then another 9 blocks for a team that does not get a lot of block shots. So to me, very active game. In the third quarter, they lost that quarter by 4, but the zone defense helped them kind of maybe slow down some runs here and there. So to me, it was a good effort overall defensively. They kind of got back to their identity, which Alex pointed out earlier in the episode.
Yeah, this is a big win for a lot of reasons. It doesn't mean everything is fixed, but it does mean that at least this road trip has a chance not to be the disaster it was looking like. Like, at least you get one of the first 3. Detroit game's a swing game here. You get yourself back to, look, you put yourself back in position where if you can get the split against Indiana, Halliburton's not playing very well right now. I guess he played better tonight, but they're missing 2 starters that are probably not going to be back by the time that the Heat get there, Nesmith and Nembhard. So they're a little bit beat up right now. So, again, the Heat will have maybe they get Jimmy back by that point of the trip. Who knows? But this buys you another couple of days with Jimmy. And it does show it's important. They can defend without him. That's good. The offensive stuff, like you said, it's not like they exploded tonight. They scored 95 points, but they can defend without him. They made things work. And I do think Jovic getting some confidence tonight, whatever role he's in, is a positive for them. You don't want to lose the young guys this early in the season. You don't. I think it's important. Now you get Jaquez back in the mix a little bit. And Tyler again, the 8 turnovers, he's got to clean that up. But he's going to have some because the ball is going to be in his hands. They're going to be blitzing him. You're going to expect 3 or 4 turnovers from him. It's just the nature of it. Dwayne LeBron used to talk about that. If we're not committing some turnovers, we're not doing some things right because obviously we have to be aggressive. So I get it. He's got to clean some of it up. But to shoot 60% when they're all over your ass like they were tonight, I mean, I don't know. The question about whether or not he can score against good teams, he's doing it. He's doing it on very high efficiency. So that's a real positive going forward. I will have coverage for you throughout the rest of the road trip, as we always do. Got a couple guests coming up this week as well. And again, join us on Playback. We'll do some off-day stuff and sign up for Off the Floor. Thanks to all our sponsors. Have a good night.